Today on Homeworthy, we're bringing you an inside look into one of the most iconic estates in East Hampton, New York, Grey Gardens. You may recognize this famous home from the popular 1975 documentary. Liz Lange, creative director and CEO of the women's fashion brand Figue, purchased the property in 2017 and has since embarked on a glamorous restoration. So join us as Liz gives us a tour of her family's magnificent Hamptons estate and its world-famous gardens. Enjoy!
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lange. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
So we're sitting here at my house, Grey Gardens, which is a house that we purchased from Ben Bradlee and Sally Quinn. Ben Bradlee is most well known as being a longtime editor-in-chief of the Washington Post, figured prominently as somebody that broke the Watergate scandal. I'm really dating myself here. And Sally Quinn was his wife, and they cut a very sort of wide circle in Georgetown and DC. They were extraordinarily social, and they also entertained at this house nonstop. Had people like Lauren Bacall, Michael Douglas, many Kennedys. I think the reason that Grey Gardens is so famous is because in the 1970s, a documentary was made about this house and its inhabitants, and it really took off and became kind of a phenomenon. To this day, there are so many people I know who can quote every line from that documentary to me. What made it so intriguing was that this house, a very beautiful, very stately house, really almost steps from the beach in East Hampton, was owned by Jackie Kennedy's aunt and uncle and cousins. But what had happened was somehow Jackie's aunt, known as Big Edie, and her daughter, known as Little Edie, were living in this house together, just the two of them. They had fallen on hard times. The Beales had divorced, the money had gone away, and Little Edie and Big Edie were living in a house that the town of East Hampton was actually on the verge of condemning for very good reason. So for those of you that have seen the movie, you may know. The attic was filled with raccoons. Most of the rooms were falling apart. If you took a step in them, the floor would actually disintegrate underneath your feet. There had been a few fires in the house, so many rooms were just completely destroyed by fire, not repaired. So this really captured the imagination of people worldwide because the Kennedys were so glamorous and so well known that they would have an aunt and a first cousin living in such squalor, and squalor is an understatement. Really kind of just got everybody talking and thinking, and people kind of became obsessed with Big Edie and Little Edie. If you've seen the documentary, you know they're interesting characters. They say funny things, and they live here and seem somewhat unaware of the fact that they're living in these extraordinarily reduced circumstances. So this house, the way it looks today, has been a labor of love, first by the people that bought it from Little Edie, Ben Bradlee and Sally Quinn. They restored it originally, and they're heroic for doing so. And then 30 years later, they sold it to us, and we embarked on a second major renovation. And my inspiration when we were renovating was really to bring it back to the house that it was when the Beales, this very prominent, very social register family, came in 1923 and purchased this house as their weekend house. They were members of the illustrious Maidstone Club. They lived in a beautiful apartment in New York City, and this house was absolutely gorgeous. And then so much had happened to it that sadly it was far from gorgeous. And I really wanted to take it back to those early years. It was first built in 1897, and the years really from 1897 probably till around 1950, the first 50 years of this house, when it was really a stately, what they would call beach cottage in East Hampton. And so hopefully that's what we've achieved here. But that's really what the house is known for, and it never ceases to amaze me, the amount of fans this house has, the amount of people that gather outside our gates on a daily basis to get a peek at it. It's quite something. And I feel, I feel a certain level of responsibility. That on the one hand, when we came in to do this renovation, I knew we needed to make this house our own and it needed a massive renovation. But I'd like to think it was more of a restoration, because I knew that there were so many people out there that would be very upset if this house didn't sort of retain its original look and feel to a certain degree. I mean, not the 1970s version that you see in the documentary. But so we were very mindful of both modernizing it for our family, but also being very respectful of its history. And that's really what informed our massive 3-year renovation, restoration, kind of taking the whole thing from the top work that we did on this house. So this is the entry of Grey Gardens, probably one of the most iconic rooms in the house. When super fans come over, the first thing they want to do is get on that staircase and start waving those flags like little Edie and marching down those stairs. So this room, it was very, very important to me that we kept this room as intact as possible. Obviously, we renovated it completely, but we saved every piece of molding, stored them, and then, and restored them, and then put them back. And where we couldn't, we created the same so that it would really feel familiar to all those Grey Gardens fans. We wanted to have fun with the house, though. I mean, as you can probably see, I'm a huge, huge fan of color. So I thought just doing this leopard wallpaper in blue going all the way up to the second floor landing would be fabulous. And I really like the mix of things. So you'll notice I've got this Fornasetti sort of chest of drawers mixed with some kind of wild chinoiserie with a monkey that I probably found on Dixie Highway in Palm Beach, where I also have a house. And then there's more mid-century modern going on over here. We had an artist paint these floors. They were the original wooden floors to look kind of like a black and white traditional, but punched up. We kept the banister exactly as it was. Again, because the staircase is so iconic for people that are familiar with the documentary, which of course so many people are. So it was just about restoring it, but it was not about changing it. So that's really, the bulk of what goes on in this entry room. I think the most exciting moment is, for most people, this staircase. I also reached out to a bunch of different artists that I liked and knew of and asked them to imagine art for Grey Gardens, some kind of take on anything, whatever just came to their mind. So one woman painted this for me. She's a British artist, and that's meant to be little Edie, I think, in the garden. And we've scattered them throughout the house. I'm a fashion designer, and mixing colors and prints, it's like everyone has a little superpower. That just comes really naturally to me. I think of almost every color and every print as a neutral, and I just treat them that way. And it usually works. So I guess I would say I'm not afraid of color or of print at all, as you can probably tell. Sometimes I go too far, but I like it. And I think if one loves it and puts it together, it will work. You can sort of see this Fornasetti chest of drawers has within it, you can see a cheetah walking, and there's also a lot of leaves. And of course, it's kind of ombreed with the different levels of golds and browns and yellows. And it's unexpected. It's not of this time period, so it's kind of unexpected. And I like things that are unexpected. I think expected is boring. So I really mix it up. You wouldn't expect Fornasetti with mid-century modern necessarily with chinoiserie. You wouldn't necessarily expect it all together, but I like to do it that way. I actually collect this sort of mid-century Italian modern glass. So this is a pink grouping, and I thought it was kind of fun to do a pink grouping alongside a pale blue grouping. And you'll see it throughout the house because it's something that I've always collected, that I love. I'm constantly scouring eBay and First Dibs and Cherish and all those sites. And there's this little boutique downtown called The End of History, and they have tons of it. So I'm a huge fan. And you'll see my little collections everywhere. Clearly, I'm a crazy person. So everything in this house is logoed. Even the umbrellas, you can't see, but these are GG, which is our house logo, done in bamboo, because I adore bamboo. So these are our house umbrellas, and you'll see other logoed items as we make our way through the house. I'll point them out. I even have matchbooks in different sizes, all with the GG logo. Some have our flowers around it, some are our simple logo without the flowers. logo, logo, logo. I love it. So here we are in the living room. This is the room, I mean, I often spend time here during the day, but it's really used a lot at night. We have a lot of dinner parties here. We love to have our friends over. And typically after dinner, after we're done, we will retire to this room. We'll sit around, we'll have more drinks, coffee, tea, desserts. And so I wanted this room to work really, really well for large groups, for small groups. So I kind of divided it in half, although it can also just be one. It's two halves and it's also one. So on this side of the room, of course, we've got a full seating area, all these little tchotchkes that I picked up along the way. I am a, nonstop shopper. So when I'm not shopping for clothes, I'm shopping for objects and tchotchkes and things to put around, and whatever I like I just buy, and I figure I'm going to find a home for it. So that's sort of what happened here. You see some animals. I'm really into animals. Some shells. I love this vintage lobster plate. Hydrangeas are kind of the flower of this house. We have so many of them. During the height of the season, our front porch and our front driveway is just an explosion of pink and blue hydrangeas. It's really fabulous. And so we kind of picked up that theme wherever I could within the house. So I often keep hydrangeas here. This painting actually was interesting. We have a painting in our New York City apartment that just says chrysanthemum that we love. It's in our living room. And we had the idea of asking that artist to make one for this house that had a flower that reflected the flowers that we see around Grey Gardens. So he came up with hydrangea. He does his own typeface, he does his own coloring, and he made this one for us. And I just think it works really perfectly in the room over the fireplace. So this is just one little seating area. I love this guy. He's kind of crazy, and I did find him in a little antique shop on Antiques Row, Dixie Highway in West Palm Beach. Amongst my shopping, and I loved it. I also found these fake tusks. They are not real, but they're very 1970s to me, the way people used to decorate, and I love it. So this is just one fun seating area. Then as we move along, I had the concept of this room being divided by sort of a round settee. So you can sit on it, you can face either direction depending on who you're talking to, and we do. I had seen an image in a magazine of a house in the 1960s, and they had an unusual potted plant on top of their settee, so I copied that. So these two flamingos are mid-century modern, also picked up at an antique show along the way, possibly in Paris at their flea market, where I did a lot of shopping for this house. In fact, I bought this pair of pale blue ceiling fixtures at the Marche Pousse in Paris. When I started this room, my first concept of this room was that the walls would be white, lacquered white, and that most of the fabric would be one of my favorites from Quadrille, which is Arbre de Matisse. It's an iconic print. I actually have it in my bedroom in New York in a different color. I'm highly consistent in my taste. So we did this brown and white, and the whole room kind of got built around it, that the room is basically brown and white with little touches of pale blue. And because the house is old and traditional, I certainly wanted some of the furnishing to be traditional, but I also wanted to juxtapose it with more modern things. So, for instance, this mid-century modern coffee table that I found, I want to say John Salabello, who has a store out here and does fabulous mid-century modern, always has the best curated mid-century modern antiques. And I love the scale of it. I love that it's low. I like very low furniture, very Halston. So it just feels very cozy. I mean, half the time when a lot of people are around, one of us is just sitting on the floor here. So I wanted everything to feel cozy, fun. I'm wild about this huge, oversized elephant planter. I found it in an antique shop. Sadly, his tusks are broken off, but we're about to have that repaired. And every summer I just plant it with orchids. And it's just so funny and unexpected. And I love that. I love things that you won't find anywhere else, that aren't in everyone's house. So certainly I've never seen an elephant planter like this before. Another thing in this room that's nice is it's become a home for a collection of paintings I have and drawings. I love this artist, Frances Hobby. For those of you, I'm aging myself, but I grew up with dolls by somebody named Holly Hobby, and Frances is actually Holly Hobby's daughter. So she paints all these fabulous girls that in some weird way remind me of little Edie or just feel this house to me. So I've got a huge collection of them. We had to move 2 over to this wall because we have normally a Matthew Wong painting here, but the Matthew Wong is on loan at an exhibit in Amsterdam. So we have more of these girls here by Frances Hobby. Just one detail that that you'll see throughout the house, but since we're here, is that hardware was extremely important to me. So, all of this hardware, we selected and we customized for the house. We did it through Nan's Hardware. And it was very important that we had these more old-fashioned way of opening and closing these French doors. And French doors were something that when we bought the house, it had more windows than French doors. And what was really important to me in this property, because it is so known for its gardens, plus the way we like to live is very indoor-outdoor, that we punched out as many French doors as we could. Again, trying to be very respectful of what this house looked like in its glory years, and its glory years were probably 1900 to about 1950 or so. So we tried to restore it to what it had been in its most magnificent years, and French doors were part of that for us. This is the powder room. I love this Argemans World wallpaper so much that when we were working in this house, I traveled to Milan just to go to their store and to see it. And so we put this wallpaper here. Then we had an artist paint the sconce shades to match it. And I've always been obsessed with the hardware manufacturer P.E. Guerin. And I have their iconic birds as the hardware on our sink. And again, you'll see, as I said, I like logos everywhere, so our guest towels are all logoed in here with the GG. And so this is the powder room. So this is the sunroom. When we bought the house, this room was just a summer room. It wasn't insulated. So we completely redid this room. We made the plaster, palm trees, and the lighting fixtures, and we restored all of these diamond window panes to the size that they had been when the house was first built. And we even used, throughout the house actually, but it's most important in this room, which is practically all glass, we used restoration glass, which is a thinner pane, which is the way the glass that would have been used when the house was built at the turn of the century. That is the proper glass. So we were, wherever we could, we were being quite respectful. And then we were having fun with it, obviously. So I've always been a huge fan of Bonacina wicker furniture. I kind of worship Morella Agnelli, the late Morella Agnelli, and she used it throughout her homes in Italy, and I've always wanted to. So I took this from her. I wanted to have fun with the colors, so we went with the greens and the yellows, and again, it just feels very sunroom. And then these pretty florals that are for Botanica trading, sort of scattered throughout. We created this fireplace, actually, the entire thing, and it's real and working. Then I threw in these chinoiserie food dogs on top of it, because of why not? I have a love of animals, so whenever I see them, again, this is Mario Torres, a Mexican artist who does a lot of these. I have a lot of them in my house in Palm Beach, but I threw some in here too. The tiles are original to the house. We restored them. This was the tile floor that had been here from the beginning. And again, because there are so many super fans, these are things that are very, very important to them, and what's important to us as well. What's beautiful about this room is that when you're sitting here, you're surrounded and you have the most beautiful view of our walled garden. And of course, the walled garden is where Grey Gardens gets its name from. It is the most important garden, at the house, and and a very, very iconic garden, worldwide. So it's cool to be able to just sit here and take it all in, and I do that all the time. These are de Gournay lamps. You think of de Gournay mostly for wallpaper, but they also do lamps. So we have the de Gournay lamps here. More wicker, where I did Bonacina for the main seating area. I did Sewn out of London for this little table. This table becomes everything. Sometimes it's an office table for me. Sometimes when we're just a tiny group for dinner, we'll eat here. And sometimes if I've got friends over to play cards, this is where we'll play them. So this is kind of a room that gets a lot of different uses and is, I'd say one of the rooms that I'd call the heart of the house. The kitchen is too, but this is as well. I often work at this table. It's a good place when I actually need to do like serious work and I can't just be balancing a laptop on my lap. I'll sit here. I told you that I love logos. All of our writing pads are logoed with Grey Gardens, but this is where I'll do designing for my brand Figue, which is, I'm always so inspired when I'm thinking about my clothing, when I'm thinking about prints for Figue. I'm very inspired when I'm sitting in these rooms surrounded by these gardens and this level of light. It really gets me wanting to be creative. I don't think I ever run out of inspiration. There's always more, whether it's this house, this gardens, my travel, wherever I happen to be, all the fabulous swans that came before us, people like Gloria Guinness and Babe Paley and Jackie and Lee, Jackie and Lee obviously have a very strong connection to this house. And I'd say that, Jackie Onassis and her sister Lee Radziwill are probably my two biggest fashion inspirations. Always, every season for Figue and always for myself is what would Jackie wear? What would Lee wear? And there's something about being in this house where they spent time, where their aunt and cousins lived, that certainly is very, very exciting to me and inspirational. I'm a born and bred New Yorker, grew up, my parents' house was around the corner on Lily Pond Lane, so I've always been coming to this neck of the woods. I improbably became a fashion designer and an entrepreneur in my late 20s. And first I started with a brand that people often associate me with because it's my name, with Liz Lange Maternity, which was a line of maternity clothing that I started, frankly, before I'd even had my two children, who are now 23 and 25. It's crazy, time flies. And but today I own another fashion brand that I actually acquired during COVID, a brand that I was a huge fan of. It's called Figue, and it's the French spelling, which is F-I-G-U-E, and it's a line of women's clothing, dresses, caftans. I think it's very glamorous, and it's very much the way I like to dress these days. I found myself always wearing Figue, and so when I heard that Figue was for sale, I snatched it up, and so today I've sort of relaunched it. We've got our website, we sell to many, many stores. I'm wearing it, of course. And it feels very in keeping. My house, Grey Gardens, Figue with its sort of bold patterns and prints and colors. It all kind of connects in my mind. But I love fashion and beauty and home and anything that has to do with, style and design. So it's very fitting for me. And I think I grew up with, my mother's still alive, but a very, stylish mother who loved to shop. And I'm certainly just like her, I hope. And, and I love to entertain. So having a house like this where I can have my friends all the time is just, a dream come true. So whereas in the entry I have the pink and I have the blue and Murano glass collections, here's where I keep my yellow one. So I kind of do it by color, by room. So this room is my yellow and green moment. When we studied images of this house, of which we were lucky, there are so many, we noticed that at one point this room was almost a three-walled room. It really didn't have a wall here, and that was so stunning. And then we saw as it was renovated that yes, there were these doors, but that they almost completely opened. So we wanted to do the same. So we created these extra large sliding doors. So the room can be completely closed up, but also gets completely opened, which is just a really beautiful way to look at the gardens and to be in this room on the right, when the temperature's right. Just the breeze comes in, the fountain is often on, butterflies, birds, the wafting, scent of the fresh flowers. It's very magical. So from here, we can actually go straight outside. So this is probably the most famous gardens at our house, and not to be obnoxious, but probably one of the more famous gardens in the world. This is the walled gardens. They built walls here. We're basically right on the ocean here. So the walls are to protect the flowers from the ocean and from that harsh wind and the salt air. And we completely revitalized this garden area. We, restored the walls, built all these pathways. We restored the pergola. What you're seeing there is sadly the last of the wisteria. Wisteria kind of comes very quickly early in the season and then leaves us, but that was dripping in purple wisteria. And what I adore about this garden is that it comes out in levels. So one week it's one flower, the next week those flowers are gone and it's a new flower. So right now we're all about our peonies, our foxgloves, our roses are in, which you'll see over there, just crawling on the, with the ivy on the walls. This is a vintage fountain that we found and installed here. Again, the pergola, which actually served as a chuppah when my husband and I got married at the house, old Anglo-Indian furnishings, and a place where I also sometimes throw little lunches. So again, the walled garden in all of its sort of splendor, and it always reminded me of a secret garden because it's got these little doors and you don't know what's on the other side. We painted them, we created this color blue and we call it Grey Gardens blue. And you'll see it throughout throughout the outside of the house. We used it a lot. I'm taking you through here. This is a fun moment. First this is a peony garden. It stretches all the way around this perimeter and goes all the way down there. You see all the peonies. It's sadly peonies also, they're in and they're out. This is the original thatched hut. I think it was sort of for garden tools originally. We actually had to find a roof thatcher, which isn't easy to find in the United States. And he repaired the roof for us. And my friend Jonathan Adler, if you peek in here, it's quite interesting. He created this custom tile design for me inside of this hut, which is all about Little and Big Edie, sort of a surreal take on Little and Big Edie. So this is a custom tile installation that he did in the original hut. For fans of the documentary, I always like to show people that we kept where they buried their dog, and it's quite an epitaph. I hope someone says something that's nice about me when I die. So as you can see, it's from 1942. We completely took the landscaping from the top. We tried, again, to study the original landscape plans and be semi-faithful, semi-not. I had always wanted to have a round pool. It was inspired by the movie producer Robert Evans's pool at his famous house in Bel Air. The house is called Woodlands, and there are many shots of him on phone calls sitting by his round pool with his butler standing around, and I always thought it was just the height of glamour. We built this sort of pool/tennis house. It was all done by Accents of France because they just do the most beautiful treillage work. They did all the treillage work at the Ritz Hotel in Paris. So, we designed it and they built it like this. The inside of it is meant to almost look very whimsical, like a circus tent. It was all hand painted up to the ceiling. It's a true hangout. I would say that I didn't envision this, but my 20-something-year-old kids, this is where all their parties happen. This is sort of what rocks until about 3 or 4 in the morning on most summer nights. They're in the pool, they're on the court, they're hanging here. We even have a little kitchen bar that works with it. The tennis court was here, but we completely redid it in grass because we thought that felt more beautiful, more in keeping with the property. So we've got this grass tennis court, and then we continued and had Accents of France make a treillage backboard because I just thought a backboard would be kind of ugly, a traditional one here, and it's on the side of the garage that we built. And ultimately, the fencing around the tennis court will look like it's all made of privet, but it just takes a long time for that kind of thing to grow in, and we've only been at the house, this is our 5th summer. So that's happening, but it's not quite there yet. Blue and white is really the theme of the house. It's 2 of my favorite colors, and Grey Gardens blue, as I said, is how we painted almost every gate and door in the exterior. And we even had all of our awnings custom done in blue and white for the house. I'll take you to the back patio later. This is something about the house that I absolutely adore, is the kitchen garden. We are a little early in the season, But as the season develops, we grow all of our vegetables in this garden. You know, everything from eggplants, beets, cauliflower, broccoli, our own tomatoes. Everything comes right from here. All of our own lettuces. They're just not quite, they're not grown in yet, and it's not quite done yet. But it will be, and we will be eating from it. We created all of this. I think there was a kitchen garden here at some point, but not at this level. This walkway, also done by us. The idea behind it was that it would be a alley of lindens, and it's sort of becoming that with all the hostas and the foxgloves, but an alley of lindens that leads to what I call the Indian garden. So I'll just take you along with me. There's always a lot of garden work being done at Grey Gardens, so you'll excuse the sort of hoses and all of that. All the lilacs are in season right now, and you can just smell the lilac. This garden was inspired by this pair of doors. I found this pair of old Indian palace doors at John Darien in New York City, and we decided to put them here and let them kind of inform the rest of this garden. So what we did is we commissioned out of India somebody to create all of this marble, the marble planters, the marble fountain, the marble furniture, and then we did, you know, all of these it's a very manicured garden, whereas the walled garden is a very kind of wild English garden. This is a very manicured garden, as you can see. And this is another place, like there's so many different areas, which is fun for me. Like sometimes I'll throw a luncheon or a dinner right here. And as I said, we had all of our awnings created for the house. So this is just, again, another fun moment, because I just wanted things to feel kind of surprising, yet I think in keeping. This leads right to the indoor dining room. So when the weather's good and we're eating inside, often the French doors are open and you can feel this garden, which used to have nothing here. When we first bought the house, this was just sort of dead land, and I wanted to make sure that when we were eating in the inside dining room that there was a beautiful vista as well. And so that's what this garden is. Entertaining is very important to me. So my indoor dining room, my outdoor dining rooms, they all had to be kind of perfect for me. The first thing I did is I got somebody I'm a huge fan of Vladimir Konevsky, to make me all of these porcelain flowers for the house, and he worked with my landscape designer, and he knows, so that he was using the exact flowers that do exist in the gardens of Grey Gardens. So these were all custom for the house, even the little cauliflowers, everything custom, everything clustered here. The original fireplace, again, Thanksgiving, we always have a fire going. We do a big Thanksgiving here. I covered the walls in turquoise silk, and even the ceiling as well, because I love covering ceilings. You'll see that throughout the house as well. And then we had a painter paint all of the molding beneath in this faux tortoise finish. And then, of course, there's all this drapery work. The drapery actually continues here. You know, I thought about putting a pair of doors here, you know, either French doors or sliding doors, but then I realized I like the whole house to be open. I want to feel light coming from every single direction, so I didn't even want to close this off. So that was a decision I made. This is kind of cool. This pair of cabinets, this and this one here, they match. These are original to the house. We restored them, but these were here from the Big Edie and Little Edie days and before that. I am a huge fan of circular dining tables. It's my favorite because it lends itself to one conversation, and I don't like entertaining in a group that's bigger than 10, and I like it around a round table. So this was quite deliberate. This table does get bigger. It can be a very big oval for family holidays like Thanksgiving that we do here. But generally speaking, when we're inside, and usually we're outside, but when we're inside, we're sitting at this round table in a small group of us. I have 3 dogs. They're not all represented there because some of those, they're not here this morning because they would have been too wild. But my dog, Betty, my late dog, Rosie, and Betty is a golden doodle, and we have Betty, we have a Frenchie named Scotty, and we also have a British cream golden retriever named Barney. So we are dog people. So moving on, another detail that we did actually before we move on, you'll see it throughout the house, is even though all of the electricity, everything about this house is new, like all the guts are new, we wanted to keep that sort of old world air to the house. So we used these type of light switches that you would have seen, you know, that are more traditional than just a regular modern switch. So these turn the lights on and off, and we use them everywhere, the brass plated ones. Okay, so this is the original butler's pantry. We restored all the cabinetry and had custom hardware made for it. This is obviously our bar. Truthfully, I barely drink, but all our friends do, and my children certainly do. They're in their 20s, don't get worried. But I do collect barware. So as you can see, I collect a lot of this mid-century modern gilded barware. This is more of my milk glass collection, the French, I think it's called Porchot. More things I've collected over the years are all displayed here. And then Vladimir had made me these huge other cabbages, and I have them up top. Of course, I'm born and bred New Yorker, so can't go without my New York Post. Everything has to be logoed, so our cocktail napkins are as well. I collected these shell plates and thought they'd be fun to put on the walls. The walls are lacquered, another shade of blue. Blue is a huge theme in this house. I want it to be very rich. It's combined with one of my favorite Schumacher prints. Very happy, very fun. And as you can see, I even papered the ceiling because I like wallpaper. I always like to consider every detail. And I don't think ceilings should be left bare. So this is the original butler's pantry, and we use it now as a bar and a place to store all my plate collections and my glass collections. And so I have so many different plates. Just so you know what's behind things, I always like to put a display plate in front so I know what's behind it. Love these. I am obsessively collecting little salt and pepper cellars because I like people to have them right in front of them when I entertain. So a bunch of silver ones, a bunch of different ceramic ones, a way to quickly fill them. It's a lot, and all of these cabinets are filled with more of this type of thing. We completely created this kitchen. This was where the kitchen was, but it was two kitchens. Back then, believe it or not, this is gonna sound so politically incorrect, but there was sort of family kitchen, and then behind it, I think, is what they would call a servant's kitchen. So it was two smaller kitchens that we made into one big one. I knew how much time we were gonna spend in the kitchen, so I wanted it to be a bright white, and blue, of course, because I love blue, happy room where we could just all hang out. So whether we're sitting at the island, whether we're sitting around this table, you know, we're always kind of here. Even I sometimes entertain and here, and we sit here and we just set up all the food right here like a buffet, and people just help themselves. I'm crazy about plates, so I had this big collection of Ginori plates that I also bought at the Ginori shop in Milan when I was last there. So I created this, I guess I'd call it almost a hutch, so that it could store all of them. And we use them, but we also display them. Wallpaper, which with the matching fabric as a drapery, we created this sort of area here. It didn't exist, the room stopped, and we sort of bumped it out so that we could really feel the kitchen garden and just the land in general, the outside, when we're sitting here at this table. And what's nice is when you're cooking, you could just go right outside and grab whatever herbs or whatever vegetables or lettuce, whatever you need, right there, and bring it right back into the kitchen. So this is a room that we just live in. These are those sewn out of Britain chairs that we had painted this custom blue color to match the wallpaper and the fabric. You know, we are all about food at my house. There's one thing that if you come for dinner, you will not leave hungry. I am like all about abbondanza. And so I keep out these snack jars during the day. I'm very lucky. People always ask, like, how do you keep these here and not eat all of them? Snacks like this do not tempt me. They're just not my thing, but they are so many of our friends' thing. My children love them, their friends love them. And I really wanted to create a house that felt a little bit like, you know, a little honeypot where all the kids would want to be. Because it's funny, When your kids are younger, you're kind of going out of your mind. And then when your kids are older, you'll do anything to have them around you. So, so I love having the kids here. And so I do all these things to make it very conducive. So these are our candy jars, our snack jars. I like to be super organized. So this is how I keep sort of wine and water glasses separate. I see some must be in the dishwasher. But you know, that's behind here is all of that. I keep collections of napkins, you know, so many of them, white ones, colorful ones, it's here, blue and white ones, because I'm crazy when it comes to tablescaping and table setting, so I just want to have all the stuff right at my fingertips. Every bathroom is considered, even the one off of the kitchen, with this, you know, kind of vine leaf wallpaper and a fun little ceiling sconce that I found. Everything, I like everything to be cute looking. This is the flower room, because of course when you have gardens you have to have a flower room. So as you can see, we do a lot of arranging in here. We've got the deep sink for when we bring in the flowers, and just, you know, crazy amounts of vases everywhere. Because this house is very much a flower house. I can quickly show you if you want that it might be messy, but I keep a lot more of the candles and the things I use on my tables when I set them in here. So this is where we do all of our summer entertaining. Like, this is set for dinner tonight. This is actually our brand new Figue linens, which I'm really excited about, because I'm all about different linens every night. These are our new lamp shades that go on top of the, you know, self-lighting recharging lights, so love those, all Figue. So this is the way I would set up for like an evening. This is for friends that are coming over later for dinner. I have it all set up. Weather permitting, we'll hang out over here, you know, have a few drinks before dinner, walk over to the table. I have fun when I'm setting my table, so I just like to mix things up. This is a very matchy table, but you'll often see me with a tablecloth that has nothing to do with the napkins I use. I always entertain as a buffet, so I like to set out big plates and then just tons of food. I'll usually take those blue chinoiserie items off of those two tables, and I'll put food there. Maybe I'll take that round table that's down there and I'll pull it up here, and I'll put more food on that, and people can just help themselves. And I just have fun with tablescaping. I'm always doing different colors. Like, I love the blue and white with the pinkish beige. I love the bamboo silverware. Just different colors, different prints, different patterns. I want my tables to look very unexpected. I found these. They're kind of getting beat up, which I love, also at Arjuman's World in Milan, and I brought them back and we wired them and hung them to light this table at night. These are House of Jansen. He was a well-known decorator. Vintage outdoor chairs. I've got tons of them, so I can make this table as big or as small as I want, depending on how many I'm having for dinner. So let's go upstairs now, and I can give you a little peek of all our bedrooms. So this is actually the original landing. One of the things that I love most about this house is I don't often see a second floor landing that's done this way, sort of a rectangle around the staircase. I find it very beautifully laid out. As I mentioned, I got many different artists to give me their interpretation of Little Edie and Big Edie. So these were done by Luke Edward Hall, and you'll see like little cats, little nods to Little Edie and Big Edie. Mark Gagnon, this is Big Edie. He did this paper mache, and he also did Little Edie. So we tried wherever we could to nod to the history of this house. I think that's important. So this is the primary bedroom. This is where my husband and I sleep. Like so much about this house, I really wanted the feel of the gardens, which the house is so famous for, to be felt throughout the house, particularly on the inside. So, we picked this paper with these beautiful flowers, and we really just wrapped the room in it. That was my vision, that the room should be completely wrapped in it, from the drapery to the ceiling to the walls. The bed is custom. We even painted the motif and the colors onto our end tables. And in the entry of the room, we painted it onto this chest of drawers and created this little circus tent feeling in the entry. My collection of glass continues up here, this time in green. So this is all this, Italian Murano glass, but green for this bedroom. The fireplace works. We restored that completely. So this is a seating area we created, just a place to hang out in the bedroom, plop down. I also love that from these windows you see the walled garden. In this room you kind of have views everywhere. So if you look straight ahead from my bed, I see the walled garden and the pergola. But if I walk over to the side where we restored this original balcony, I see the pool house, and then I see all the way to the beach. It's not as clear of a day today as we'd like it to be, but you really do. This house, in fact, was on the beach. It's steps from the beach. Sadly, the Beales at some point had to sell off their one little parcel that was on the beach because they ran into hard times, to say the least. But this house basically borders the beach, and you really feel it up here, and you feel Georgica Pond, which is such a beautiful vista. So this is my husband's office. So you're thinking, what's interesting about that? Well, not much, except that this is the room that the entire documentary Grey Gardens was filmed in. So if you are a fan of that film, you know that, and it's shocking to people when they come here because it's actually a very small room. So this movie, basically, there were 2 twin beds, one here and one there. And Big Edie slept in one, and Little Edie was often in the other, and the Maysles Brothers stood in that corner, and they filmed the entire thing. This is where they famously ate corn and cat food. Sadly, because this was one of the only rooms that was available to them, because so many had either been burnt in the fire or taken over by raccoons and animals. I mean, the house was, about to be condemned. So this was the room. And since it was known as the yellow bedroom, in order to be respectful to that, we chose a shade of yellow, and we did the whole thing in sort of this more of this marigold mustardy yellow. But this is the very, very famous, iconic yellow bedroom. So when people come to see the house, this is the room that they most want to see and that they are most shocked by, because the room appears much bigger in the documentary. My husband uses this as his desk, but also in the documentary there is a famous scene in the dining room. That seems to be another room that was available to them, sort of. It's a mess. This was their dining table. This was in the house when we purchased it, so we refurbished it, and my husband uses it now as his desk. So this was the infamous Grey Gardens attic. It was basically inaccessible. I think you kind of like opened up one of those trap ceilings and a ladder fell down. It was referred to all over the documentary as infested with raccoons. You couldn't really be up here. But we restored it completely. We connected it to the house with a proper staircase. We tried to make it, I think, kind of glorious. Like it's this green and white moment to feel like a garden with the hand-painted walls. We kept the eaves of the roof exactly as they were. First of all, because we wouldn't be allowed not to, but I also think it's pretty. And I just kind of took the idea of green and white and went wild with it. So we're standing here, and then if we walk, there are some really pretty guest rooms, and it's kind of become like a favorite place for guests to sleep, actually. This attic bedroom might be my favorite bedroom in the whole house. I started with the idea that I love this venison wallpaper. I'm a huge fan of it. They made it for me in this apple green, and we blew up the scale, and then just continued the theme from there. But I liked, signature for me, I wrapped the room in this wallpaper and just went nuts with it, and with green and white as a theme, even down to green and white candies. Every bedroom has candies that correspond color-wise. And some guest amenities, because I like when friends are staying here for it to feel like a hotel. I want all the amenities there. I want them to be able to see the Wi-Fi password right away, to understand how the television works, every little thing, even down to custom suitcase stands for them. So that's kind of the way I run my houses. Some call it crazy. And so this would be an example. So now we're going down to the basement. What's interesting about the basement is this house had no basement. We actually were able to lift up the house, dig out the entire footprint of the house, and create a full floor basement. So we were able to put, some of the ugly stuff, like the mechanicals, some of the necessary stuff, like a gym, a laundry room, a wine room, extra storage, some bedrooms. But one of the things that I think is most fun on this level is the screening room that we created. I knew I wanted to have a screening room. I knew the kids loved a screening room. I know we'd have fun in a screening room, but I didn't want it to look like a screening room because that's kind of tacky to me. I wanted it to look just like a living room. So I think we did a good job. We created this sort of Moroccan fantasy, I call it. You would never know it's a screening room, but it functions really well. Like these chairs are so comfortable. You just lie back. And this is actually, as you can see, there's a projector and the screen comes right down from the ceiling. So when it's not in use, it's just another room to hang out in. I think doesn't feel like a screening room, and that's what I love about it. So this is sort of, as I said, my Moroccan fantasy screening room. You know, so many people think that I bought this house because it's Grey Gardens. And sure, the history is incredible, and the amount of people that have lived in or visited this house is very, very cool. But really, what I love about this house is it is so reminiscent to me of the houses that I knew growing up. This is the East Hampton of my childhood that is mostly gone. My family's weekend house was just around the corner on Lily Pond Lane. And this is what all the houses look like. They were these big, shingled, gorgeous, sprawling summer cottages that had been around since the 1800s. But sadly, since then, and again, you know, that's whatever anyone wants to do, but most of them have been torn down and replaced with these sort of newer, sort of McMansions, drop from the sky houses. And this was a house that still retained its original look and feel, hadn't been destroyed, is in the most, in my mind, perfect location in East Hampton, my favorite part of East Hampton, the Georgica area, where I grew up, so it's just what's most familiar to me. So really, I bought this house because I loved the house itself more than what the house represented. Like, I like what the house represents, but I love what the house is. And when you're in this house, and it's really hard to explain, you almost feel removed. Like you feel like you're in this magical garden and you don't even know where you are. You don't feel the other houses. You don't feel the hustle and bustle that has become the Hamptons. You just feel this serene tranquility of the gardens and the old style architecture of this house, which I think is very beautiful.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.